In the Imperium of Man, billions of common people do not live, they survive. Their days are fear, hunger, and endless toil. There is no hope, only pain. In the slums of the hives of Necromunda, people are born and die without ever seeing the sun. They huddle under crumbling spires and labor to exhaustion in factories. Every hour is a chain of pain and coercion. A man's life is not worth a mouthful of poisoned air. Far from the hive cities, there is no relief either. On agri-worlds, exhausted peasants break their backs on barren fields, growing a meager harvest for distant masters while their families starve. And on industrial planets, workers wither away amidst the roar of machines under a sky black with smoke. There are worlds where life and labor have been replaced by death and emptiness. Shards of fallen fortresses drift among the stars. On dead planets, no scream or whisper is heard anymore, only the wind chasing ash through the ruins. And so it is everywhere. The common man has no choice. Every day in this galaxy is a step along the razor's edge of despair. Ahead lies only an endless night. On a hive world, let's call it Kronvarg, the surface was long ago lost to humanity. A gray veil of industrial emissions, an eternal dome of factories and smoking stacks hide the sky and the sun. The northern spires of the hive city rise above platforms and more platforms, where billions of people scurry through corridors and along conveyor belts. But for the overwhelming majority of inhabitants, there are no spires, only the lower levels, a familiar and unbearable reality. Life begins and ends where no one looks up, in the slums where rust has long since eaten away the walls of buildings, where the air is thick and heavy, saturated with coal ash and a saline humor. Workers go to their shifts before dawn, and the shift ends after sunset, but they see no light. Only the glare of generators and the flash of welding. Their bodies do not belong to them. They belong to the machines, under the control of a system where every meter of the conveyor is the Imperium's tax for existing. Every day is an attempt to survive. Potable water is scarce. Food rations are meager, designed just to allow a person to make it to their shift without dying before midnight. Families live in tiny cell-like dwellings where the walls are covered in mold, the floors are stained with old fuel oil, and mutant rats roam the pipes, dropping from ventilation grates. The power supply cuts out without warning. On level 3200, the lights go out, and for several hours, where no one ventures outside, total darkness reigns. Into this darkness, fear descends. What if the generator doesn't start in time? What if the rotting floor collapses? What if a gang contract falls upon your family? A few blocks higher, in the middle levels of the hive, the situation is only slightly better. The housing is a bit larger, the nutritional ration a bit more, but the meaning is the same. Work, noise, work. Industrial corridors, transporters, machines that have, over the years, eaten the life out of the world's body. These levels feed the spires above and drag the masses of people down. The people there are lifelong workers, morning shift on the conveyor, evening mass transit to the tunnel bar, night sleep, sleep deprivation, ready for the next day. And so it goes, day after day. And underground, where one could say humanity has officially forgotten the world exists, is the sub-level. It's called the Underhive. There, it is not officials or bureaucrats of the Imperium who rule, but gangs, mutants, the shadows of former workers and the hopeless. Canals, shafts, and subterranean tunnels are filled with waste, toxic gases, and water from decrepit, obsolete systems. There, people defend themselves or they die. There, a phone call for help is too late. There, death is the standard outcome. The work fluctuates by level. Light work on the middle levels, heavy, dangerous work on the lowest. If your health fails, you are assigned a new role, for less pay, for longer hours. And all this is because, for the Imperium, you are a resource, not a person, not an individual, but a number, a piece of cargo, a mechanism. If the resource breaks, it is replaced. If it cannot be replaced, it is written off. Every day, shipments of people arrive, conscripted, purchased, transferred, to fill the voids. Hive worlds do not export food or resources, but bodies fit for labor, for work, for war. When a hive world is cut off from communication, food, or supplies, it quickly turns into anarchic catacombs, devoid of normal law. Healthcare is a word for the middle levels. In the lower levels, hospitals exist only as shadows, a crude clinic section where adept surgeons work on battered bodies, but materials have long been exhausted, medicine is a rarity, and surgery is a last hope. Every sick person thinks, if I survive this night, won't I be lucky? Parents hide their children, but what does to hide mean when your home is 2 by 3 meters, the roof is a gaping hole, and the rats prove to be more intelligent than the housing staff? People lose their memory, not the external, but the internal. They don't remember what the air was like before the ash. They don't remember what choice meant. The lifestyle of a hive citizen is the renunciation of choice. Every step is predetermined. Go to your shift, don't be late, don't get in the way, don't think. Thinking here is a luxury. If you think, you are noticed. If you complain, you are killed. If you dream, you are assigned to requalification. Therefore, most simply do not think. They ride the conveyor, they sleep, they change their uniforms, they ride the conveyor. All for an unknown tomorrow that often means a double shift or a reduced ration. In moments when the hive's structure trembles, a collapse, a generator explosion, a ventilation failure, people fall, scream, drown in smoke, and a few hours later, they continue to work. Their fear does not end, but it becomes the norm. In other words, survival is not getting home, but making it to tomorrow. The very word home means less than its absence. But not everything in the hive is dead. There are informal markets where the official ration becomes currency. A first aid kit, a filter mask, a bolt cigar. People trade in a hope that barely exists. They whisper of cases where one of them disappeared, or the arbitrators were called, the law enforcers of the Imperium, who come rarely, but always with a force that no one associates with care for the people. For the inhabitants of the hive, the Adeptus Arbits are not protectors, but a final conclusion. If you are wretched, we are your punishment. The world surrounding the hive is not nature, not forests and fields, but a constant emission that recalls the triumph of technology without purpose. On the surface are giant factories, tired conveyors, loading stations, and endless heaps of scrap metal. People breathe steel. They consume structure. They live in the shadow of machines. Their lives are measured by prescriptions: when to leave, what to do, how to perform. Individuality is an abandoned thing. Each person becomes a number. And yet, even here, in this world where light is suppressed, hope is not entirely extinguished. It is merely thin and fragile. And this means that, as the author, I can only watch as humanity is devoured by the system, as hive worlds become living machines. And there is no greatness in this, only a terrible truth. Thousands, millions, billions of faces in the shadow of the hive live, work, age, and die before anyone remembers their names. And when a hive digger, deploying his metal detector, raises his eyes to the cracked ceilings of the mine, he sees only the reflection of a lamp in the dripping fuel oil. He knows one thing, that his world will never be saved. He knows another, that despite it all, he must make it to his next shift. And so it continues, day after day. On the planet we'll call Verdalia Thurin, the tithe is steeped in the bread of the Imperium, a cry of planetary duty. However, whoever steps onto its fields will not see paradisiacal expanses, but an endless machine of labor that has devoured the land, the air, and life itself. The planet's continents are dedicated to the harvest. Gray swamps have been replaced by hybrid beds, fields by vast arrays of microprocessors and hydroponic fleets. But on Verdalia III, there is no light in the eyes of its inhabitants, only the constant expectation of the harvest, the tariffs, the quotas. The inhabitants wake before dawn, but there is no dawn, only a faint yellow-green glow from the celestial protection filters. They take their tools, long knives, gray sacks, hydroponic mats, grain transporters. Their bodies are already accustomed to the rhythm. Here you dig, here you sow, here you reap. Not a minute of rest. The weather is automatically regulated. Droplets are sprayed over the fields. Chemicals are spread at the roots, mercilessly extracting from the earth everything that can feed the giant cities and armies of the Imperium. Work on Verdalia III is a duty. As soon as the planting is finished, giant tractors and monstrous harvesters start up. They hum, smoke, and swallow the fields, while the workers, like shadows, run alongside their tracks, checking, cleaning, pumping, collecting the harvest's due. Dust covers everything: face, hair, clothes. The lungs become heavy, the filters work around the clock, but even that doesn't save them from the particles that penetrate inside, causing coughs, weakness, and fatal diseases. The ration on Verdalia III is a pittance: flakes, genetically modified grains, select fruits, but not for the laborers. They receive the leftovers. They are allowed to eat what will not go to the Imperium's tithe. They live in a profanation of abundance. When was the earth last warm? They don't remember. Parents tell their children, "We used to eat normal bread," but the children look at the gray blocks of the dome, at the mills, at the fields where even the grass seems alien. The dwellings are in unsuitable zones, barracks on the edge of the fields, without windows, with worn walls, the ventilation barely breathing. Inside, 4 square meters per person, many neighbors, frequent conflicts, food stolen, rations delayed, filters worn out. When the lights are cut at night, and this happens more and more often as the plant administration deems saving more important, the rooms become a trap. Whoever is not on shift breathes worse. Whoever is tired falls. Sometimes the walls hum from reprocessing. The gears of the factories can be heard even at night. Their noise is both a lullaby and a death knell for those with nowhere to go. The working conditions are brutal. If a harvester breaks down, the workers are doused with acidic liquid fertilizer during maintenance. If the harvest is below the quota, there are fines. The ration is reduced. They are assigned to requalification in tougher sectors. Non-compliance is not an option. In the subconscious of each person, the thought grows, "I am part of a machine." And not just the machine of the fields, the machine of the Imperium, where the commodity becomes not only grain, but also the body, a resource, another soldier. When the harvest season ends, many farmers go to the registries. Reports on what was collected, reports on seeds, reports on losses. They stand under the vaults of administrative buildings around which transport airships fly with grain. These airships carry the harvest to the stars, to the hive cities, to the war fronts, and those who toiled remain. Their labor goes to the needs of others, and in their eyes there is a void. Sometimes, when the soil is too depleted, Verdalia III declares a harsh harvest regime. This means the health regimen is canceled, workers go out without rest, tithe brigades are raised, armed with heavy weapons to suppress any revolt until the grain is collected. Then, people lose everything: their homes, their means, their rights. Some disappear in the night, as if eaten by the system. Life on Verdalia III is not a struggle for a better tomorrow. It is, every day, a minimization of damage. Someone seeks small joys: a glass of mutated wine, a conversation with a neighbor, a light laugh before a shift. But joy is illegal. A laugh that is too loud attracts inspectors who check filters and breathing apparatuses and ask questions. Why are you not on your shift? There is no answer. Against their system, there are no complaints. To complain means to be absent from the collection, and that means being replaced. And when night falls on the fields and the harvesters fall silent, the air fills with a heavy tremor. The last of the day's heat escapes through the metal towers. The dust settles, and the workers return to the barracks. There, amidst the rasping of shells and the dimly glowing lamps, they are silent. Sometimes someone asks, "And for what?" But the sound of the answer is only an echo in the empty room, because the answer is the reports, the harvest, the quotas, and the tithe of the Imperium. And on Verdalia III, a generation has been born that knows no other world. It does not remember what the sky looks like, what fresh grass smells like, how sweet fruits untainted by genetically modified additives taste on the tongue. It knows only the earth under a plaster filter, only the grain that leaves and the body that remains. This is the harsh truth of an agri-world. Where the Imperium's harvest grows, life does not. Where people eat the leftovers, machines devour the fruit. And when a new harvest begins, people go out into the fields again, with their trophy transporters, with their counting belts, with skin covered in dust. And they know they are not the masters of the land, they are its shadow. On the planet we shall call Farrakron VII, the sun does not shine. It was long ago hidden by the smoke domes of giant factories. The surface has long been inaccessible to humans, huge platforms covered by steel canopies, an endless flow of casting, stamping, and granulation of metals and chemical compounds. Farrakron VII is a forge world of the Imperium, a place where the weapons, machines, and steel chains of war are born. But no one there considers the people themselves to be alive. They are a resource, a repeated number, the sound of a machine, the clatter of acidic, smoky air. Life on Farrakron begins with the roar of turbines, the clanking of chains, and the hum of techno-monster plates. People live and work in an eternal cycle, shift after shift, underground factories, airlocks to workshops, cryo chambers, small wagons with molds. Housing consists of high corridors, block sections where windows have been replaced by iron shutters, down which a watery dread from condensation trickles. To rest, one must find an hour in the pressurized ventilation regime between shifts and inspections. But rest is often canceled. When the factory creaks and flashes with the red light of an alarm, overtime is imposed and people simply show up again, without checks, without a please. The air smells of molten steel and hydrochloric acid. The filters, issued at the start of service, work at half capacity. Metal particles, smog, and radioactive droplets from emissions penetrate the lungs. It is hard to swallow a cough that is not a cough, just a heaviness. In the medical sectors, they say the average length of service is just over 30 years. Formally, there are no records, but the charts show bodies fall more often than new trainees arrive to replace them. Working on the line is not a choice. It is an order, checking templates, changing dies, loading presses, monitoring temperature. One wrong move and acid fuel spills, and the shift is evacuated with injuries. The equipment is expensive and there is no time for repairs. Workers become temporary quasi-servitors. Whoever fails is transferred to the mining segment next quarter, which is even worse. In this world, to fail means to be surplus. The distribution of rations depends on the quarters. The upper sections of the factory spires receive more decorations, colored lights, fixed compensations. The lower levels, the body of workers receive molds covered in slag stains, their ration cut. Today is normal. Tomorrow is a fine. Today they are alive. Tomorrow they may be written off as an inefficient resource. And even death is no tragedy for the system. A worker's body is replaceable, the numbers keep running. Common areas are a rarity and a spectacle. Once a month, a talisman gathering is announced. 15 minutes of complex decompression in front of a giant screen with the slogan, "Your steel serves the Imperium." The Imperium will not ask your name, but it will take your strength. Then, production resumes. People sit, clenching their hands, not looking at each other because a glance can mean a thought. A thought can be a contravention. A contravention means an extra day in the underground structure. Beneath the surface of Farrakron VII is a network of tunnels and disposal shafts. There lie the old decommissioned workshops. People whose bodies are already cracking from contamination are transferred there. loading toxic slag, sorting scrap metal, participating in the repair of giant silos. There, the light flickers, the oxygen level drops. There, the machines hum, never stopping, not even at night. In this darkness, people forget what it means to go to the surface. The myth of the morning air is told by the old, their faces like seals of fire lines, black scars, eyes clouded by smoke. Parallel to production runs transportation, orbital shafts, cargo lifts, Titan rockets. People watch as steel structures lift heavy blocks upward to the stars and want to ask, and what about us? But no one asks. The imperative is simple. You do, you give, you remain. Sometimes a worker sees a portal as a rocket capsule carries away a shipment R-37 for the front. He knows that no matter how badly the metal that is scrapped today was needed, new ones will come tomorrow. A black cycle. When the shift is over, people go out into the street's high galleries where the air is as toxic as it was on shift. There are tunnel bars where workers discuss their chances of survival. A drink with a hint of sulfur, a tasteless cigar, a conversation. How much time do you have left? No one answers, because to speak means the question has been recorded. Through beams and lasers in the cells, matrix controllers watch. They do not smile. Their eyes are scanners. They look at faces, measure breath, assess productivity. If you are breathing normally, you stay. If not, requalification. Housing is located in the bases of the spire frames. Each block is type R sector D12, 4 square meters per person, wall to wall. The filter pack is replaced once a week if there is one in stock. On days without a shift, it is cold. The minimal heating systems are turned off. People wrap themselves in oily cloths, trying to sleep under the heavy hum of the machines. But sleep is not rest. You don't dream here. You simply turn off your consciousness for a few hours, then get up again and descend once more into the mine. One day, there was an explosion on line Xenos 46. You could see how blood-red sparks rolled down the workers' bodies, how their shadows disappeared into the stream of molten metal. The alarm sounded, the lights switched to emergency, the crowd ran to the airlocks. Then, the shift continued. The lines were straightened, the death toll was labeled normal, and none of the survivors asked why. Because the answer was, that was yesterday. Today, it's back to work. And all of this quietly, without heroes. The Forge world offers no pathos. It offers the last resource, the body. It offers the sound of metal and the smell of sulfur. It offers a person a choice, work or disappear. But to disappear simply means to become a new number, a new shift. The morning on Farrakhan 7 does not come as a salvation. It comes as a new cycle. And people do not live for themselves. They live to be forgotten. And when you stand among the iron tantalum columns, hearing the magnetic lift roaring overhead, carrying container SH9 to orbit, you understand. You are not part of a great history. You are a cog, you are a resource, and you hear it whispered, we are not building ourselves, we are building death. And with that thought, you go to your shift, and the Forge world comes alive again. On the planet we'll name Sanctoris 5. The surface is covered with cathedral megastructures, relics, and columns of light that pierce a gray sky that almost never changes its color. Sanctoris 5 has been declared a shrine world, a place where one of the Imperium's renowned saints is buried, and millions of pilgrims come here to worship. But behind the facade of candles, blessings, and bowed knees hides another reality. The reality of thousands upon thousands of people whose day begins with the tolling of bells, but ends in the shadow of servitude. Their life is not at the altar, but in the kitchen, not with a censer, but in the cargo airlocks, not in prayer, but with a broom and dustpan in the subterranean corridors of the temples. Pilgrims arrive via star routes, and the transport hubs vibrate with waves of arrivals laden with gift sets, relic candles, and the burning torches of faith. They see the temple fortresses, the pleasure and triumph of the emperor. And beyond that, the worker blocks, where the common inhabitants of Sanctoris 5 toil every day so that these pilgrimage routes can exist. They are the guards, the porters, the cleaners, the repairmen. Their hands are gnarled from work, their bones broken by service. But no one celebrates their sacrifice. It is forgotten before their shift even ends. Housing for such people consists of city barracks on the edge of the temple complex, wing sections designated for serving servants. Each block is a number, a number, a number. Outside the window are columns of light, stained glass windows of glory. But in the room are drops of condensation, cold concrete, and the noise of ventilation, interrupted by the call of a choir somewhere below. May the emperor be magnified. But this call is not for those who live behind the grand halls. It is for those who call, not for those who answer. The work begins with a dawn that doesn't exist. Over the dome of the temples, an artificial dawnlight illuminates at precisely Orti 5 Saro according to the service schedule. A managing adept announces Shift 1. The people rise, don gray-white uniforms with the emblem of a dustpan candle. They go to the galleries where the walls are decorated with mosaics. The emperor is watching, the holy path. But the walls themselves are seeping with mold, the tiles are cracked, the lamps flicker. The work, cleaning the subterranean crypts, changing filters in the ventilation, clearing sludge from dripping filth, maintaining the infrastructure that supports the flow of pilgrims. The ration is meager. Pilgrims receive the best dishes, relic candles, gift chickens, pomegranate wine. The workers, however, are the service contingent. Attempting to skip service is unacceptable. Attempting to complain means you are not on time for your shift, the system knows. Control is strict. A plasti chip in the neck, tracking of irregular movements, reports on the efficiency of cleaning and the pilgrim conveyors. The air in the lower corridors of the temple basilicas is heavy. Incense mixes with the smell of the sulfur generator, sweat, and old age. The reliquary wells and crypts hold thousands of remains of the saint and his followers. The people whose hands were meant to bring light now haul metal containers, fill infiltrators, change the projector lamps in the galleries. The service never ends. Day shift, night shift, prayer, cleansing, suffering. The subterranean streets of the serving workers are full of shadows. It is easy to get lost there. Corruption is not declared, but it is alive, selling special candles to pilgrims, forging relics, straying from church service. This is a chance to earn a little, to break out of the system. But the chance is as rare as a ray of sunlight behind the dome. And when the evening ends, the bells fall silent, and the light on the temple facades dies out. The residents of Sanctoris 5 gather in the shadow-drenched barracks. They fall onto their cot mattresses, and in the whispers one hears, tomorrow is shift 3, a service report, a filter check, reclassification. No one dreams of adventures, the risk is too great. No one remembers what the grass earth smelled like, because the grass here disappeared long ago. But it is precisely into this fairy tale shell of a holy world that the harsh flesh of the Imperium intrudes. Servitude, labor, suppression, and even faith turns into a long queue, a report counter, a container card for service personnel. The servants walk to the sound of the choir, but not everyone can be in the choir. Most are patients of the work capacity parameter. Face-changed filter installed. Purification passed out to the shift. And so, under the shadow of domes and chandeliers of pure gold, 1 million people live the same life. Service for the glory of the emperor, but without participating in that glory. They are the shipment of materials, the preparation of infrastructure, the fuel for the pyramid of pilgrimage. Their names vanish before they are even recorded. Their face is seen for a moment while a scanner reads the microchip. Then again, pipe, pipe, pipe. Sanctoris 5 is a world of faith, but it is also a world of endless service, where light should be holy, but the people are mere shadows, where prayer sounds loud, but the answer comes back muffled in bills, in reports, in rations. And when a pilgrim leaves for the return portal, he returns to the stars while the worker remains in the crypt by the lamp with a heavy earthly step. And if you stand beneath the stained glass dome, seeing the reflected light of the holy sign, you might think, this is a home. But if that light does not reflect you, then you are just part of the machine. And you know, life on a shrine world is not liberation, it is servitude, and servitude is not life. And you go to your shift. The evening ends. Tomorrow, the prayer begins. On the planet we will call Tenebris Thuthine, life has long ceased to beat as it once did. Tenebris Thuthine is classified as a dead world. The atmosphere barely holds. The ecosystem is destroyed. On the surface remain only ruins, dust, a radioactive trail, and the echo of a former greatness. The Imperium sends no pilgrims here, builds no hive spires, erects no temples. There is no mass labor here, as on the Agri or Forge worlds. But there are those who remain technical groups, maintenance chains, the living dead, assigned to support the remnants of infrastructure until the world finally goes dark. Their life is in the shadow of another's execution, awaiting the final shutdown. Dwellings are located in old bunkers, forged when the atmosphere was still healthy, but now repurposed for survival mode. The walls are impregnated with a radioactive film, the pipelines are rusted, the ventilation works only partially. The light comes from low-power lamps, filters are issued one at a time. People walk with gas masks, every breath is a risk. Those who can afford it have had their lungs partially replaced, but most have not. They cough, spitting blood, or simply lie down, never to get up again. The work is not labor for growth, but the maintenance of the dead. Disposal stations, purification, monitoring, sensors that no one checks, signals that no one reads. The instruments still blink, the smokestacks still smoke, and the system must appear alive so as not to admit that it has been destroyed forever. Food consists of dry rations of a uniform composition whose past no one remembers. Water is purified to a minimum. The contingent is divided. The main specialists receive a little more, the rest wait. When a resource transport is delayed, people simply call it that day. If the ration arrives 2 or 3 days late, someone falls. No record of deaths is kept. The numbers are not needed. Social life has vanished. Conversations about family, children, the future are impossible. Whoever starts a conversation is quickly marginalized. You are not in production. People become service statistics. They do not celebrate birthdays. They do not remember what a vacation is. Their home is a bunker cell, and every step is towards something darker. Sometimes at night, the wail of sirens is heard, a failure in one of the systems. People emerge into the bunker corridors, the smell of sulfur, a stinging light, the flicker of emergency lamps. Someone does not return. Someone returns and silently lies down on their tablet bunk. Death here is not an event but background noise. And yet, Tenebris Thuthine is not completely empty. Amidst the methane clouds, among the half-crumbled factories, lone engineers and technicians continue to work. They know their task is to keep the system running until an order comes. The order may be simple: evacuation, decommissioning, sealing the zone. They wait. And they do not sleep. The Imperium has turned its back on them. They are on the edge. They are not a resource. They are the remnant of a resource. They are the echo of those worlds where life had meaning, but that meaning was taken away. They live in the shadow of the prohibition to admit that their world has completed its cycle. They live because they must. Because as long as someone believes they are still working, the system says, all is well. Tenebris Thuthine is not a plea for salvation. It is a museum of emptiness. And the people living there are not heroes. They are the keepers of the last lamp. And when it goes out, no one will notice. And when the bunkers fall silent, it will not be the end, it will be the norm. And as long as the light still flickers, they go to their shift. and the dead world continues to exist, as long as the Imperium deems it useful.